again, it was always one of those things. You see something that's wrong and you think you can change it. And a lot of people will challenge you, say, well, hey, if you think you do a better job, why don't you go be an officer? And I took that to heart. I was like, all right, let me see. Maybe I'll have a better luck, or, maybe I can have more impact over more folks.
Hey, welcome to the Knight's Path podcast. Got a very special guest on today, Steve Perzia. How you doing, brother?
Doing well, Matt. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So really excited to have Steve. He and his wife do some really good things. We'll get into that later, but really want to kind of get to know Steve too. And I'm also going to plug a video an interview he did with another buddy of ours, Russ, the Rowdy Dawg Godfrey, where Steve's an expert on crypto, and he does crypto for beginners with Russ. And I'm gonna put that video up somewhere where people can do it, because I learned a hell of a lot. Steve's smart as hell. I can't wait to get to know him better. But Steve and I, like many of my guests, incredible human being, and I've met a lot of really great people through our group, Entre Institute, our mastermind, our inner circle, and Steve is no exception. He and his wife Megan are like the power couple, love them to death. And can't wait to get to learn more about him and for the audience. So, Steve, with no further ado, let's, where were you born? What did you like doing growing up? Let's just kind of get the Cliff's Notes version of you and what you do for your 9 to 5, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, hey, appreciate you having me on the Knight's Path. Love the show. I love your mission. So super glad to be here. But I'll take you back. So I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania. Great little area to grow up, small town, did all those all-American things, we'll say, right? A lot of hunting, fishing, and, playing baseball, football, and all that kind of stuff. Good times, then kind of made the way up through the ranks of, going through school and all that. In high school, I was a swimmer, runner, so that type of stuff, a little bit different.
Nice.
Yeah, so really got into endurance and those type of events. And so it was fun. And then, after that, that's where confusion started a little, right? I wanted to go in the military right away. I was only 17. I was kind of young. My birthday's at the end of the year type of deal. And my parents were like, no, we want you to go to college, because, they didn't go to college. So it was, so anyway, so I go try to do the college thing. And I tell you, I went to 3 colleges in 2 years. Now, I loved college. I just didn't like all the work that goes along with it, right?
Yeah.
Me too. When I decided yeah, right. It was like, but when I made the decision to say, hey, this isn't for me, right? I mean, not at this point in my life. So I was 20 years old, went to the recruiter's office, and joined the Army, was gone in 30 days. So that's kind of where I feel like my life really changed. Because up until then, I grew up small town, never really went anywhere. Went on a vacation down to Florida one time or something. But at that point, joined the military, where you get, boom, hit with life, right? It's like you get on a bus, you show up at basic training, and next thing you know, people are yelling at you. But I mean, just crazy, because it's where I wanted to be, right? I like that structure. I like the intensity of it. Yeah. And it was cool, because I just met folks from all over the country, right? People that you just, wow, like I was used to my certain set of friends, and all of a sudden none of them are there. So just had to learn and learn culture and talking to people, different foods. And then for me, I was lucky, kind of went through basic training and my advanced school, and then ended up Germany, right? As a young guy, 20 years old, turning 21, I get stationed in Germany. I'm like, oh, so it was perfect. That was the college for me, right? Always the thing about being active duty and all that, you have friends everywhere. You just knock on some doors in the barracks and, hey, let's go here, let's go here. I mean, so for me, that was life, right? I mean, so for the next couple of years, it was stationed in Germany, then came back home to the States and was stationed up at the 10th Mountain up in Fort Drum, New York.
Okay.
And still a lot of, just the camaraderie and the things you do. And, we always talk about embrace the suck, and things are terrible, right? For most people can't imagine sleeping out in the woods for weeks on end and all that kind of stuff. But when you're there with a bunch of guys that you just like enjoy being around, it wasn't that bad, right? It was fun. So, going forward, got out of the military, went to college. Now I'm a different guy. I'm completely focused, right? I mean, my job is now, going to school. So that's it. I graduated. I went to Penn State, one of the smaller campuses up by me, up in Penn State Wilkes-Barre, and I graduated from there. Basically like all honors. I mean 3.9, whatever. It was just I was focused at that point. Okay, hey, I'd done all this other stuff. I had lots of fun. Now let me get that college degree and I was focused. Came out there with all kinds of awards for this and that, and it was just but I loved it, and most importantly, I'll mention here, that's where I met Megan. So
okay. Yeah.
Right. So it's funny kind of how things work, right? I mean, I stayed in when I got out of the active duty, I stayed in the Army Reserves.
Okay.
Yep. So I mean, at that time, that was 2000. I got out of active duty 2000. So obviously, you kind of can see where this is going, but going to college, graduated college, start the job hunt. Well, I didn't need to worry about finding a job. I came down on orders, 500 and something days. Hey, you're going to Iraq. This is when Operation Iraqi Freedom was kicking off, 2003. So again, it was one of those times that was just like, for me, I wanted to go because, it was just, I always felt like that's what you train for when you're a soldier. When I was on active duty, had an opportunity to deploy to Bosnia, support operations down there. But, this was going to be different. So, but again, it was kind of one of those weird things. When you start looking at 500 plus days, you start calculating that in your mind. You're like, that's a big part of my life, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I deployed in like November of 03 and didn't come home till 05. It was like April of 05. So, I mean, you start tracking that and you don't realize you miss things. You start talking about, hey, last year we were on vacation. Like, no, that wasn't last year. That was like 3 years ago. Cause you were here and here and here. So anyway, with that, I mean, love the military, so again, just kind of moving on that track, got out, so I got out of active, stayed reserves, kind of did the deployment, came home from deployment. I actually ETS, I was done, right? But probably 18 months later, I think it was 15, 18 months later, decided to go back in. I missed it. I missed that camaraderie. I missed the responsibility. I mean, when you're deployed, at that time, I think I was E6, but you're just given so much responsibility that you come home to do a job and they want to put you in some kind of role that's, like, what I did over there,
Right.
It's like, how many people I was in charge of and how much stuff I was doing. But so, I went back, but really one of the things that really prompted me is I had a soldier call me out of the blue. And this is when, it was kind of like, or Facebook, you didn't really know about it. So it was hard to kind of get in touch with guys back. You know what I mean? It's like now I can find anybody whenever. Right. But a soldier called me. He's like, hey, I wanted to say thank you. Not just for teaching me about being a soldier, but teaching me about being a man, right? Because, you see a lot of things on deployment that are not, we'll say, ethical, right? A lot of guys doing things, running around. And he was kind of going down the path. And I was like, listen, that's not being a man, right? You made a commitment to your significant other, whatever it is, or you stay with them, right? I mean, and he took that to heart, and that made me so happy that I actually impacted somebody. So with that, that's why I always call people. If they've had an impact on my life, I would get in touch and let them know. I'm like, hey, when you did this for me, I was like, I appreciate that, so went back in, stayed in the reserves, little change. I decided, hey, maybe I can have a bigger impact if I can go jump over to be an officer, right? So at the time
that's what I was going to ask. You had that degree. Were they, saying, hey, Steve, maybe, you make the transition.
Right. And again, it's always one of those things, you see something that's wrong and you think you can change it. A lot of people will challenge you, say, well, hey, if you think you do a better job, why don't you go be an officer? And I took that to heart. I was like, all right, let me see, maybe I'll have a better luck, or, maybe I can have more impact over more folks.
Right.
So again, went down that path, and that of course that requires lots of schooling and going back for training and all this stuff. And
you had to go through an OCS. Was that?
I was actually, so I was kind of a rare case, because back in the time when I got commissioned, I actually was a direct commission. Yeah. So I have
explain to everybody what that means.
Yeah, so basically, they kind of look at your records and say, so for me, I was a signal guy. So I grew up in the comms community. And then, so I had done so many jobs as an enlisted guy. I had different MOSs, which are different skill sets, right? And then transitioning to the officer, they're like, I went and, they take all your records, all your schooling, then you go sit in front of a board with a bunch of other, senior NCOs and officers on there and kind of like, hey, are you worthy?
Right.
Right. But they kind of looked at my records and like, listen, you've been like pretty much the honor grad in every class you went to. And they're like, yeah, you know more than we know. Right. So we're going to go ahead, and the Army's kind of hurting right now. It's 2010, is kind of significant right there with Afghanistan, Iraq. We're, fighting like crazy. So I went ahead and got direct commission. So for me, I had to go back to school to learn how to be an officer. Right. Because again, I've been enlisted for all those years. So different responsibilities, different policies. Now you got to get familiar with a lot.
You're also going to have a hell of a lot more respect from the enlisted guys. If you were an enlisted guy, if you were a non-com, and then you came up through the ranks, became an officer, you're going to have a better interaction with your non-coms, probably, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I feel that like completely, right? It was one of the things when I joined the military. I always said, if you want to be a great leader, you got to be a great follower, right?
Yep.
Because again, there's going to be a lot of decisions that get made. And, for me, I wanted to kind of see what happened. So at that low level, so I enlisted, I was private Perzia at the time. Right. So it was, I'm buffing floors and I'm doing all that stuff. So absolutely 100% agree. Cause you know what it's like to be, because for me, the worst thing I hated was, the military has a lot of hurry up and wait is the saying. And I hated wasting time.
Right.
Because time to me, obviously, I'm sure, right, to you, it's that precious asset that when it's ticking and it's going away, you don't get it back.
Right.
And so that was something for me. So absolutely, guys really respect that, because like, hey, well, it's hard to kind of complain to him because he did that shit, right? So it's like, so I'm like, guys, I was there, I did it, I know, right? So but anyway,
as
so
an
kind of
officer wanting to make a bigger impact. I mean, how do you feel you did? And take us to that part where, as an officer, because I mean, you are putting on a different mantle, right? And now you're kind of, I would imagine you have a feeling out process. You know a lot about being led by how you were led in a good way and how you were led in ways that weren't necessarily. That's where I've learned a lot of my leadership skills from leaders, and going, that's a shitty one. I don't ever want to be like that. That's a great one. I want to be more like that guy. But, kind of, navigating that, but then over in a climate, right, where there's like, hey, we need guys like you. You get this like special board, and they're like looking at all your stuff, and just, hey, for everyone in the audience, don't ever think that like when Steve was going back to Penn State, he was kicking ass and getting 3.9 whatevers, that wasn't part of all the paperwork that these guys were looking at going, holy shit, this guy's top notch. So don't ever, think that what you do today and you prove yourself isn't going to benefit you tomorrow. So I wanted to throw that out there. I'm proud of you for that. Thanks for calling that out. But let's talk about your officerdom and your impact over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the proudest moments is when I was selected for command. So being a company commander, and with that, my company, I think we had about 140 folks in the team, and that's when you really start to have an impact, right? I mean, sure, there's always somebody who's going to be above you, and I got that, but this is kind of like your home. You go to your drill hall, or you go to your reserve center, whatever it is, and that's your domain, right? And the folks that are there. So for us, I mean, I had a great first sergeant. So for folks don't know, that's the non-commissioned, your colleague, right? I mean, he's that sounding board, and I had a great one, so for, just again, so for us, it was about building from the bottom. I was all the little things, right? I mean, I give the example of when we walked in, we looked over at the area where the guys would keep the coffee pot, and it was a mess.
Right.
I grabbed the first sergeant. We just grabbed the next troop walking by, and I said, "Hey, what do you see over there?" He's like, "Oh, the coffee pot." And he's like, "Okay." I was like, "You see anything else?" He's like, "Nope." And that's when I looked at top, and I was just like, he's like, "Yeah, we got a problem, right?" And that was it. I mean, yes, we're a signal unit, and we were all slated to deploy. And I said, listen, I don't care about signal right now. I care about being soldiers, So first thing we did was, we're going back to basic soldier skills. We're doing ruck marches. We're doing land navigation, all the things that here the guys actually wanted that, right? They wanted to get a little bit more of that, because sometimes you're so busy on a weekend or, limited time that you just kind of lose those soldier skills. So that bonding, right?
Yeah.
So we really took that to heart. And, again, so then my command philosophy was all about excellence. So that's kind of tying that in later in the show about Entre, right? So how Jeff and I came to like, oh my God, is this guy my long lost brother? Because here I am, my command philosophy, big words are excellence, right? Because again, I'm not a guy about perfection. Again, that's kind of one of those things. Perfection for me is almost like a false goal, because I'm like, you're perfect once in your life, right? Like when you're born, right?
Yeah.
But so achieving excellence is what we were all about. And, that's what we did. I mean, and we had an impact, right? And I think, testament is like, we deployed, we did a great job. A lot of guys were given missions to do other things that maybe other folks weren't. And gosh, that brought everybody home, right? Everybody's safe. And again, I think one of the biggest things for me was also looking at the retention rate, right? We were able to teach guys that, hey, everybody's job in the military is important, right? I mean, I know a lot of times you see the guys that are, we'll say Navy SEALs or Army Rangers, or right, again, top-notch warriors across the board, but they don't always show the guys who support them behind the scenes. Right. I mean, hey, if your communications or your satellite link down, well, if you haven't been fed, if you haven't had your truck repaired, all that stuff. So support is key. And sometimes the guys would not understand that until they get on a certain mission where, hey, if your comms go down, that drone doesn't fly, right? And all of a sudden, the bad guy gets away. So when a couple of guys got to get on some, real world missions, they were like, my retention rate was through the roof, right? Because they realized how important their job is. So we kind of used to preach that all the time, like, hey, no matter where you go, comms is always in the room, right? I mean, they don't realize how important it is until it's down, and then they can't talk. So
well, they say an army runs on its stomach, but nobody knows what's going on if you can't communicate. So
that's it.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So for us, that was pretty much the, again, we preached excellence. I was kind of I would say I was a little bit different of a commander, because here I am also like 10 years older than where most commanders are, at normal commanders probably coming in at 28, 29. I'm, pushing 40 at that time. But again, I made sure I was always up on PT, and, so, you can't smoke me, right? That type of thing. Because I don't care if you're a young buck, you're 18, 19, 20. I'm like, how come I'm beating you, right? I'm 20 years older than you. So you just try to set a real good example. Like myself, my first sergeant, first to the office, last to leave, all those little things that guys see, right? They talk, right? When I'm coming into the tent or to the office in the morning, it's 6 a.m, it's 5 a.m, and that guy who was there on duty, that lower enlisted guy, the junior enlisted, goes back and tell his buddies, like, man, the commander is always there, right? Well, that's because I care about you guys. I want to make sure our mission is straight, and so yeah, we put a lot of time and a lot of effort in, and again, we did a lot of non-typical things that I'd never seen as a commander. Usually, talked about SMART goals. We had sessions, sit down and teach guys about goal setting, because here we are getting ready to go on deployment. For a lot of these guys, they're going to make a lot of money, right? Compared to what they did in their civilian job, and like, hey, what is your plan with that? You're going to come home and just buy a motorcycle, or hey, maybe you can buy investment property, right? Or maybe you can do something else with that money. So setting goals. I used to hand out books, like in the Army, you hand out coins all the time. So I had the coins, but I'd also hand out books to people, recommended reading lists and different things, but not just recommended reading.
That's taking leadership another level.
Yeah. I mean, I just felt like just doing something different, right? And then we also used to like to bring the first sergeant, had a great idea. He used to bring a junior NCO into these big meetings with them. They always have the huddles at the end of the day. A lot of the guys would be like, why are things always changing? Like, they would think it was us sometimes, right? Like, man, what are you guys doing? So every week he would like grab a soldier, an E5 or somebody, and just kind of take them to a meeting, let them sit in the back, be a note taker, and they get that perspective. Like, wow, I understand now. It's not just about us. I mean, there's a lot of coordinations, a lot of moving pieces. So, this is why we say what we say, so I think that helped tremendously. But, we just, I think we just kind of did things a lot differently, because like you said, you've seen some stuff that you're like, I don't want to do that. And, like another people would say, who do you work for? And I know what they were asking. They want to know who my commander is. And I was like, I turn around to the formation. I said, I work for them. I work for my people, right? Like and that was kind of my attitude. So again, it was the hardest job I've ever had in the military, by far most rewarding. Like I said, never put in that many hours in a lot of things. And but yeah, absolutely rewarding, especially, so many guys when we had come home, I love writing letters of recommendation. These guys are going for jobs, hey, one of my lieutenants is going to be the director of Veterans Affairs in this city. I got a guy who's, wants to join the police force in this city. I'm like, sure. I mean, I know the quality and what you've done and where you've been. So I'm like, I love that, just kind of, that's to me going full circle, taking care of everybody. So
yeah.
I mean, we just did a lot of things.
That's awesome. That's knowing your guys, and that's taking pride in your work. I love the SMART goals and the fact that, hey, when you're done with this, or while you're living through this experience in the present moment, what are your goals and what do you plan on doing? Like you said, probably a lot of young guys that are like, hey, I just want to go out and buy a motorcycle and, then just drive around for 3 months. And you're like, hey, maybe an investment property. I think that was super poignant too, what you said, where that one guy said, hey, I just wanted to thank you for kind of guiding me as a man, and I talked to, I think he was my third interview on the podcast, Chance King, and he was a captain in the Army. Okay. And we were talking about, he was talking about his first sergeant and all his non-coms that just helped make him better when he was a dumbass officer in his mind. It was what he was saying. We were talking about, you never know what's going to stick. You never know what you're going to say to another human being that's going to be impactful. And that can be impactful in a bad way, impactful in a good way, right? And we all probably know that we've said things we didn't mean. And we've also said things that maybe someone came back around and said something and it was like, whoa, I didn't know you were paying attention. And like you said as well, when you're the first one to come in, you're the last one to leave. I mean, the walls have eyes and people talk. So to lead from the front and lead by example is huge. And, I think you had an advantage being an older guy coming in and having all that non-com experience coming in. You heard all the water cooler talk, what was said, so then you're like, hey, not me, not on my watch. Or if you do talk about it, bad about me, it's not going to be, it's just going to be because you got a negative attitude. It's not going to be anything that I've done or how I'm not supporting you or how I'm not trying to make you grow. Or if you do bitch about me, it's because I've challenged you to become better, right?
Yep.
So I think that's fantastic. So this is a perfect segue for talking about coming in a little bit older and not letting the younger guys smoke you, right? So let's talk about your physical, Steve. And I'll tell a little story. And Steve is, you may not be able to tell necessarily. Yeah, dude. So like Steve, I've seen Steve on like Skypes and Zooms and stuff like that. But then when I saw Steve in person, we had this seminar in Colorado, and I see him walking with Megan. And Steve's the kind of guy, when you see him walking to the gym in a muscle shirt, you kind of do a double take, and then you stand a little straighter because he's this jacked fucking dude. And like, we were all wearing the COVID masks and stuff at the time. So he looks like friggin' Tom Hardy from playing Bane in Batman. And I'm just like, dude, who's that jacked friggin' dude? And like, Shane was talking, I was just focused on, dude, who's that? And I'm like walking all, damn, that's a big jack dude. And then I hear Shane going, hey, Megan, hey, Steve. And I'm like, oh, we know them. Hey, friends. But I was like, damn, dude, you're friggin' jacked and stacked. But anyway, let's talk about your physical, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just the physical for me is where it starts for everything, right? Because I just feel like motion creates motion. I feel good. The kids feel good. Everybody in the house, like it's kind of like Megan always used to say, hey, as you go, we go, right? Because like if I'm on point. So physically for me, I mean, there's been points in my life where I'm trying to build up, be that alpha, right? The military, it's like you can bench this much, I can bench more, right? But it's gotten to the point where now I've really focused about what makes me feel the best, whether that's lifting, whether that's body weight exercises. So I've been on trying to lose weight right now. So like, that's kind of been my thing. But overall, what I do is, it's an early morning routine. You guys saw that kind of like yourselves. I'm not sure if that was just because you're traveling or if you're an early morning guy. But, it's a 5 o'clock deal. Not trying to prove anything, but that's just what works best for me. It's like, we test this. Megan and I kind of like, hey, what's been effective? What's ineffective? Again, throwing that in with the family as well. What do they have when the kids have to get off to school? But that seems to work for me. I do 5 o'clock. I don't go crazy. I do an hour, but I do a lot of, I don't do a lot of chatting at the gym. I don't chat, right?
Right.
That's to me, I used to do that when I was younger. That was the hangout. But now I'm not there to hang out. I'm there to work. And that's what I get in there. I, do a little, get right to it. I mean, I don't do a big warm up, and people will disagree with that. But my thing is, like, when I'm walking down the street and something's about to go down, I don't have time to warm up. I got to be able to.
You don't have time to, hey, time out, big guy. Let me
right. Let me. Exactly.
You got to be able to do. It's go time. You got to go. Your body's got to know that. I like it. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I get to. I don't really do a ton of cardio anymore. I feel like if I'm moving throughout that circuit, I'm huffing and puffing. Like I'm the guy that sits down on the machine and I got to clean it off, right? So, but so again, it's typically I work out 6 days a week. I slide my rest day, so I don't take the same rest day every day or every week. So sometimes it'll be Monday, then next week it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and I kind of slide it. That's something new I started a couple of weeks ago, and it's been working pretty well. I used to just do Sunday, and Sunday would be the routine of Sunday's just off, but kind of change that around just to kind of see how it feels. But again, so the point is every day it's some type of workout, and then along with the physical is trying to eat well. That was where I struggled.
Yeah.
Because growing up, it was like I was a skinny dude, and they're just plowing food into you, and then you realize, like, hey, at some point that metabolism slowed down, and I got, I'm like, can't throw that pasta down like I used to, and bread on every meal, and of course, beer all the time. But so now it's just really, we try to eat healthy, and it's kind of more the same type of system of, about 5 days a week is really solid, healthy food, clean fuel. And then the other days, it's like kind of what happens. On the weekend, we don't stick to a strict schedule. It's more about kind of like Meg and I, the kids kind of do their thing on the weekend. It's our time for me to cook and, make some good omelets or whatever it is we do.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, again, we're always training for something. We do a lot of like around the yard, we do a lot of Spartan type training because Megan's into the Spartan stuff. So, we do different, like I have a pull-up bar in the yard. All those type of different events that kind of are similar, like, a lot of carry events. So, buckets filled with rocks, just little things that it's just, I laugh because I say, back in the day, they called this work, right? Like you worked on a farm or you worked somewhere and you just work. But now it's like, being that I work in an office and she works in an office, it's like, hey, we need to, make sure we're doing this. So the other thing is trying to get a second workout in. That's been the other thing, because I feel like great. But 1 hour a day to me is not enough when you sit for 8, right? Like, so I go to work and I sit at a desk and I'm, doing what I do. And it's like, man, I'm not moving at all. I'm sedentary all day long. So coming home and that second workout has been just playing with the kids, right? I bounce on a trampoline. We got a big old trampoline. I'm out there. Megan's out there trying to get 15, 20 minutes of bouncing. And it's also really good for all your stabilizer muscles. It's easy on your joints. And then we go off and make it one day a week when the kids are doing whatever sport they're doing that point. It's like, we're running sprints, or we're doing walking lunges up and down the field, or bear crawls, and trying to make it's really not a strict scheduled workout, but I work up a sweat. So I know it's still kind of been good for us. And so we do, that's obviously important. That's kind of where our goodness starts. I mean, I love it. It sets up my day. I know you're kind of the same way. You just feel like, hey, you got something accomplished.
Yep.
And it's, I just love coming out of the gym and got a little pump, you're ready to go to work, and it's like, all right, cool.
So do y'all work out together in the morning and try to do something in the evening? And then
so typically we work opposites. So like I work out in the morning and she works out right after work. And that's kind of how that goes.
How many kids y'all have? So y'all got that going too.
Yeah, we got the 3 kids. So, and they're at different ages. Different, so 14, 12, and then 5. So
yeah,
little spread out there, and everybody kind of does something different. But so it's summertime's great for us too. We love, obviously I know you're down south, so you get a little bit more time, a little better weather, because in the winter, we don't do as much outside, but it's just kind of the way it's been. But we love outdoors in this time of year. Going for a hike, going mountain biking, all those type of things that are just staying active, trying to just continually move, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just and like we said, the food you eat, again, we love eating, a lot lighter. It's like it just as much as people joke around, like when you eat heavy, it just takes for me, I just get tired, and it takes forever for me to get going. I can eat, if I eat light, I can get right back in the gym, an hour later if I needed to. Where if I eat a good big heavy meal, like traditional, it's like, man, I'm out for the night.
Right. Right. Absolutely. No, I love it, man. You're spot on, and yeah, you and Megan don't screw around when you're at the gym. Y'all immediately start moving, and then it doesn't take you long. I noticed that. Shoshone's one of those guys. He's at the age where I was skinny as hell too, and
Yep.
I could eat anything. And Shoshone, when I was asking him about any guidance, he goes, well, right now it's anything I can put my eyes on. And I'm like, yeah, I was like that too, buddy.
Yep.
Sounds like you were like that too. But it's like, hey, enjoy it while you can. Maybe it lasts longer for you. But when I hit my 40s, I could be pretty lazy with my cardio and not have to watch what I eat pretty much up into my early 40s. But then, man, I started traveling a lot, and like sitting down a lot. And then all of a sudden, in friggin' 8 months, I was like, holy shit. Right. It did not it was like, man, but I love what you're doing. So I want to get into your mental game because, for one, you've got a great active brain, and you like to feed yourself. So nutrition for your body, but nutrition for your mind as well. And you also did that with your troops and your guys. Hey, better yourself. Here's some books. I give out coins, but hey, here's some books. So what do you do if you have, for one, to try to be better mentally and to grow, right? Because I'm 100% spot on with you. It's the journey, not the destination, right? So perfection, mastery. I always talk about seeking mastery. It's that journey, and it's treading water. If I quit seeking mastery, I'm going to sink. It's constant effort. It's constant movement, like you said. It's constant growing, never staying still, never being satisfied. So your mental game is feeding yourself. But then what does Steve do when you have a shitty friggin' day and you need to stay focused, right? Do you have a routine? Do you have a Zen room or a moment, or how do you re-zero? How do you reset? So let's talk about you feeding your brain, and then let's talk about some of your tactics and techniques to recenter and get back in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, mental is obviously key. And, there's a lot of the basics that we see everywhere, reading books, listening to books. But one of the things that we like to do here is board games. We do a lot of board games, especially the strategy games, right? So, we love Risk and different things like that. But what we do is, I'm sure a lot of folks, you do the house rules, right? So you kind of make it a little bit more challenging of how you play those games. And, I like doing that for ourselves, but it's also great to see the kids start to think a little differently. So seeing those different strategies, like even playing Monopoly or those games that I grew up, we played a lot of board games, wasn't really into electronics too much when I was younger. Like kids these days, right? I mean, not to say that it's bad, but I think it adds something, that just makes you think, right? So play a lot of board games, a lot of puzzles, those type of things, but also those, all the board games that kind of are more Mensa related and IQ related. Megan's one of the high IQs, right? She's so we play a lot of those games because she thinks completely different. Like I'm probably more of the straightforward, push through thinker. Yeah. If she sees a problem, she'll come up with something that's way different. So I think it's super beneficial for the kids because they kind of see these two ways to solve a problem right here in their own home, right? And plus whatever they add to it. So a lot of board games. Obviously seminars, love, obviously we can't get to them. It's constantly listening to podcasts, podcasts like you're putting out, a lot of our friends in the inner circle, the things they're saying, the things they're doing, so listen to constantly feeding my brain.
You all have a great YouTube channel, and I'm going to plug it. We'll put all your content in the description, but y'all have, y'all gotten into the game, as far as your interviews and stuff, and, learning, and, y'all are learning. I'm learning watching your stuff. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. And that's the other thing. It's just kind of, what is someone else, like yourself, right? You're a master of, we'll say martial arts. So where I'm not, so I can send someone there to say, hey, watch Mac. This guy's been doing it for years, right? So rather than trying to I used to always think I had to do everything myself, right? And now I realize I just go to the source of who's the best. Right. I just go there. And I'm like, let me see what this guy's doing. Let me follow them and kind of again, if I'm just starting, I'm not going to be the master, but I want to learn from somebody that can give me those tips and tricks. So I do that. Then also, so that kind of goes along with seminars and people. I network a lot with folks. I just listen more. When I was younger, I had to talk. Someone starts to say something, my story's better. Oh, I did that. I did this. Now I just listen to actually learn. Before, I used to listen to just like wait for my spot to jump in and tell you how I did something cooler or I did something better. But again, I think that's just maturity, right? You're just learning and realize you don't have all the answers. And yeah, so I really work on active listening, and I take notes. Back in the day, I used to trust my memory. Now I don't. So I mean, like, just like you're doing, I'm taking notes here as well, so I can kind of come away with some more knowledge. So those are big things. And then to your point of what you do when you're going to have a bad day. So the first or a bad moment within the day, I hate to say bad day because, there's old, hey, as long as nobody's shooting at you, things are pretty good, right? That was kind of our rack motto. You're not getting mortared, you're not getting anything going on. So it's not a bad day. But, I plan for those things now, right? So I know that I'm going to have obstacles, especially when I'm going in to do something new or a new group of folks. A lot of times it's just, where you work, whatever. It's kind of like, so again, it's just me going in and saying, hey, I try to look at it, I reframe it. Before, again, I'd be alpha. I'd be like, I got to win. My point's the best. But now I kind of go in with I just relax. I just kind of literally, you'll see me. Sometimes I just do this. This is my own little, just like people have a power move where they kind of like bat their chest or flex. It's like, big deep breath. And then I kind of just say to myself, like, right, hey, we're all here to solve this problem, right? That's because usually it's in a meeting with me, because if it's a family thing, we kind of have our own little time to usually table it, and we have our little family meeting where we work it out, right? And usually by the time the meeting comes on, the weekend, we forgot what we were even talking about sometimes, like what that little argument or that little comment was about. But for me, it's literally as simple as a deep breath. And like, I kind of say a positive thing. I used to be a negative guy. I used to be like, say something, what the F, Steve, what the F are you doing? You're better than that, but now it's kind of like, hey, we got this, right? And it's like, it's a positive thing. That negative self-talk, like I said, at 25, I love in-your-face confrontation, talk shit to me, right? This Steve at 45 is like, I don't respond to that at all, right? Like, so again, things have changed, right? Like, I think it was Todd talking about what's effective versus ineffective. At a point in my life, that was effective. Now it's not. Now I know I can I have the skills to get through a lot of conversations and a lot of those type of things. So it's just bringing out the best me. So I kind of already know when I have a meeting or I know something's going to go on, I plan for it, right? I know there's going to be people that are negative in that meeting. I know people are not going to like to hear this, that, or they're going to give everybody's going to give a reason why it can't work. I'm like, or we tried that before. I got it. But you just kind of learn to stay calm and center yourself, right? Just with that that little breath and this little, I'm here to serve. I am here to serve, right? Like, that's kind of my attitude. Everything in my life really has been about service to others. And that's kind of, if I keep that attitude, I'm good, right? But again, there's times when, talk about my first sergeant, we used to have my safe word because I'd get fired up. I mean, and he would be like, hey, sir. And he'd say this little word in my ear. And it was just like, all right, that's the word to calm down, right? So I've been able to move beyond that. But he was right. Because, there's a time to be intense, right? But I think, it's like you need to have your full range of emotions, right? Because anger is good sometimes. And it might be the thing that you need to get through. But I find on the other side, just being really empathetic and listening and understanding that problem. And a lot of people are tied to their problems, right? When you go into these meetings and they hold on to that and kind of like respecting that for a second, but then like, hey, teaching them how to let that go.
You're 100% spot on with the breathing, because we as Americans, we tend to shallow breathe quite a bit, quite often, like literally just taking a big deep breath, and then there's box breathing, there's tactical breathing. I'm sure you're aware of a lot of that stuff, and then just being able to breathe and just refocus and calm down, and that can de-stress in a lot of situations.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. That breathing thing helped me because I learned that a few years back at a different seminar, and just the box breathing method and all those different methods. I mean, it's been it's so simple, right? Like I hate to say that because it's like people like, oh, breathing, this and that. I'm like, listen, just take that time and you know, as a kid, just learning to like they take a deep breath. You always thought you had to pull your shoulders, but then you can breathe. You know, now learn to breathe from the diaphragm and different style breathing and hold it for a little, release it slowly. And you don't need once you've learned and practiced that so many times, day in, day out. It's like you don't need a whole lot to get you centered. And so that's kind of like, you know, for us.
And I totally resonate with that. The breathing, and we don't, doing it right doesn't take much to recenter, refocus. So spiritually, so and like some people, you know, I'm not looking for you know, some people are religious, go to church. I don't go to church. Like for me, I go outside, I'll talk to the trees and stuff like that. I'm kind of a hippie when it comes to my spirituality. But also spirit is a indomitable will. Spirit is a positive attitude. Spirit, right? Like that guy's got a really uplifting spirit. So spiritually, what do you I mean, I know your mental game is kind of leaches into that spiritual positive attitude, wanting to influence people in a positive way, but it also kind of ties into your mission, and we'll get into, you know, your hustling for excellence. But spiritually, you know, what's your compass north, right?
Yep. So that's a great question, right? Because I grew up as a, you know, going to Catholic school up until, you know, probably, I think it was 7th grade, but doing the whole Catholic church thing. But as soon as I got to the Army, I had a chance to kind of break away from a lot of that. So I would go to different masses on Sunday, you know, whether it was Southern Baptist or Protestant or what, just to, you know, initially it was to kind of get a little extra time away to myself and just, gosh, you know, because it was, you know, going to basic training, you need a little overwhelming for me at first. You know, it's like I love the physical stuff, that's easy. But, you know, it was just kind of being away and going to different masses. It's like you start to listen, and I always say I love God, but I don't love the business of religion. Right. So for me though, I mean, it's been an interesting journey because, you know, I've read a lot about other religions, and I find that it's just like everybody has this thought in, you know, whatever they call it, in whether it's Buddhism or, you know, Islam, they all have this central idea of this like power in the universe, right? So for myself, I mean, I think I like church, traditional church, because I was a structured guy, right? Makes sense doing the military. But now it's like, to me, I just feel like there's just a power, there's an energy in the universe. And so whether you call that God or whatever, but I just like, I also believe in putting out goodwill and karma, right? Like that's and I feel like it just comes back. So, you know, I'm not so concerned anymore as I used to be with what you call it. Because again, when I was a youngster, I was about, hey, my religion's better than yours, right? And I know that sounds crazy, but it's just like, that's what
people were raised a lot of times.
That's kind of how you're raised. It's almost like when you grow up, you know, if that church didn't have a good leader and didn't say the right things, then heck, I'm going to spout that stuff as well. So, you know, I like the whole idea of, you know, the camaraderie of the church community. So to me, it doesn't matter. You're Catholic, you're Christian, you're this, you're that. I just like folks who treat people well, right? And want to do more. So that's kind of where I've evolved to. I mean, I would say I'm a spiritual person in a lot of ways, but I'm not so much, you know, I still belong to a church, but it's hard to say like, hey, I always joke around. I'm like a 60% Catholic now, right? Because I'm like, I like certain parts about it. I like going to church, listening to somebody preach, because, hey, you know, for a lot of people, I feel like that might be when they're at their best. You know, I mean, because it's almost like a safe place.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, it's a safe place for a lot of people to, you know, kind of relax, let go, let their hair down, in the sense of, hey, you know, you're stressed all week at work. It's that hour of, you know, zen almost for folks, especially like, so for, you know, I meditate pretty much daily, do different types of meditations. So for me, I get I've learned to relax and calm down and get in touch with, you know, myself and kind of the universe in a way. Again, that's
my mental game is I'm spiritual. I believe in a higher power, universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it. I totally resonate with you. And I used to not. It's amazing when you have a paradigm shift in thinking, is putting out. It's like dropping a bowling ball in the middle of a lake. It's going to ripple out. It's eventually going to come back to you, and maybe at different times, depending on the shape of the shoreline, right? But it's going to go out, and it's just putting that positive energy out. And then it's amazing what happens when it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And that's not why I did it, for the return. But it's amazing when you just start getting bombarded with goodness and like little consequential surprises and things. And, oh, here's a check. I just found a $20 bill or whatever, or I just had a friend call me out of the blue. And, but yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying there. And the meditation for me is key, the recentering, the breathing. Totally get that. So, man, I love all this. I love learning about you. And now let's get into, and again, I'm going to put your video that you did with Russ, the Rowdy Dawg.
Rowdy Dawg.
Because, dude, I learned so much about, so Russ does, health and wellness for seniors. And I've been on his show. Steve and Megan have been on his show. He's a great guy. I'm going to put his link up here somewhere for the Crypto for Beginners that he did with Steve and Megan. But, now let's talk about what you got going on. I love your store, by the way. I like all the goodies. Yeah, I'm gonna get a tumbler, man, because mine's getting kind of ratty. I'm gonna get a Hustling for Excellence tumbler.
Yeah, well, hey, appreciate the idea. You're the guy who kind of led us in that direction. We were looking at a different store and kind of ended there, so appreciate that. Yeah,
you bet, man.
So I mean, Hustling for Excellence. I mean, like I said, I feel like you and I are so similar in a lot of ways with what your mission is trying to do. You may say it in a different way, but it's about being the best version of yourself. That's what we want, right? We're trying to help people, better themselves, and I get comfortable with the journey. That destination, that's something that's kind of pushed, I think, when you're younger, like, oh, once you get this, that, then you'll do this. And then
what are you going to be when you grow up? When am I grown up? And then once I get to the grown up status, am I just stopping? No. What am I?
Exactly. So that's that whole idea. For us, it's really about the same thing, focus on helping others and service. But now we're trying to look at it as a couple. Now, we get complimented all the time about all the things we do. Oh, you guys are doing this, or you guys are doing, oh, I wish we could do that. Or, oh, it would be so nice if my husband would do this, or it'd be nice if, my wife would do this. And I'm like, you guys can. Right. We are not special. It's like, sure, we put some work in, we've been to, and isn't that funny, right? Real quick. The first time we started this, probably 2008-9, the Army, to their credit, had a couple seminars about communication with your spouse and reintegration. And as soon as we tell people we're going, what do they think? Oh my God, are you guys getting divorced? What's wrong? Is everything okay? Like, things are great. We just want to make it better. Like, it's okay to do these things, but that's so interesting that we have this stigma about, going to seminars and going to a couples retreat or whatever you want to call it. But, Megs and I have obviously been
committed, and that's being not taking anything for granted, right?
Right. I mean, we obviously been through a lot. I mean, probably more than some couples in certain areas, with deployments and being away for, me being away for a year at a time, then, hey, another couple of years, you're away for another year. And then, so again, but I know couples that deal with lots of stuff, it's like, I don't know. So we really got into this, how do we help them, right? And we found, when we kind of doing our research, what is that they struggle with, and typically it's finances is a big one. And a lot of times it's one person in the couple is trying to do something a little different, right? And then they're growing and the other one's not. And we found that there's a lot of resentment in that, right? And for a lot of reasons, it might be the resentment for time, like, oh, you're always on, or you're always working on that thing, or it's money, like, oh, you're spending money on that stupid internet thing again, or you're spending money on this, and it's like, they're jealous sometimes, right? Like, well, who are you talking to up there on that webinar? Who are you talking to? So we've kind of got to the point, like, how do we help people? So that was the genesis behind Hustling for Excellence, because again, we get complimented a lot on the things we do. We're always like, how do you have time to work out? You hear it all the time.
Oh, yeah. We all have the same 24 hours, right? And what y'all are doing is you've in that 24 hours that everybody has, you guys make it a commitment to have certain things a priority and to do things as a couple and to be a team and to parent your kids and to care for them, and then to also do your 9 to 5 to the best of your ability and it's really just stepping back, taking stock, and looking at where the gaps are and where you can throw some spackle and some effort where you want to. And that's where you guys are like, hey, this is where we're going to play a board game. We're going to challenge our, everybody mentally. And this is where we're going to carve out this niche, and we're going to try to help people. And what couples argue about money quite a bit, but I want to ask you this, because my wife and I have different money blueprints, right? Like completely different. Where did you and Meg hit on money blueprints, and then where have y'all kind of met in the center? And then that's probably, if you're trying to look at couples, because y'all are like a badass power couple. We got other amazing couples in our group, Chris and Sue and Sandra.
Yeah.
And you guys are amazing. It's inspiring, but how much is the different money blueprint and how people were raised do y'all come across, and y'all try to help people work through?
Yeah, so that was kind of where I was going with this. The first thing that we noticed is mindset, right? You have to get your mind right. And it's kind of like, what got you here isn't going to get you there. So if you've been, and really the first thing is probably debt, right? When you start talking about debt, people get this whole, I can't do this or I can't do that because I'll go into debt. But learning to say, hey, if that debt is going to give you an asset or help you start that business, then maybe that is worth it for you, right? I mean, because just kind of looking at the big landscape of, well, what does that couple make? How much are they able to put away? Where are they spending that? I mean, maybe it's more value to, start a business and be able to spend $200-300 a month on advertising for their business or whatever. But again, it's like you had mentioned with our mindset. So again, growing up very traditional in the sense of, you work, you save, and then you go to college, spend all this money to go to college and all those things. It's that's kind of was the struggle, because we heard those things. But here's another example of, like, growing up, you didn't talk to kids. Like, if it was a money thing, that was mom and dad handling it. Oh, don't worry about it, this is for adults. Everything was, don't worry about it, this is for adults. Well, you know what, those kids grow up to be adults, right? So if you don't talk to them now about this, right, so that's kind of the paradigm we're trying to change in our house, with our children, like letting them understand, like, hey, here's credit, here's a credit card, but you understand there's a good way to use it and there's a bad way to use it. As long as you understand those implications and what you're using it for, hey, it may serve a purpose. Like, obviously, I know you depending on your field and your background, you always kind of look at choosing the right weapon for the job, right? Sometimes a shotgun is the best weapon. Right. But then other times I want to have that laser focus of a rifle that I could reach out, right? So that's kind of the way I like to explain it to folks, because some people are just all over the place. They just want to throw it up and see what works. I'm like, listen, that's a technique. It may not be the best technique, right? So, but we really try to get, the first thing is mindset. And that's kind of, Megs is the one who's really exploring that, and probably more than everybody, because she realized her mindset had held her back for a lot of years, right? Like, she had this thing against sales. And then here, tracking back, it was something that, like, she kind of found out when she was a youngster. She got slapped down for, selling candy on a bus, right? It's like, you're this little entrepreneur that we would want to foster that. Like, hey, you're doing a great job, kid. We just gotta, maybe not do it on the bus. We'll set up a stand for you or something. Right. But again, so you got to work the mind, because, I mean, you're programmed as a child, and it's not your programming. It's your parents, it's your teachers. Yeah. So you got to go back in. Don't feel bad about that. We all got it, and then work through, what do you want to do now? Like, because that's the program you want to put in you, right? So it's like, hey, if I want to have this, I want to have passive income. I want to have more time freedom, location freedom, whatever it is. So again, the first thing we do when we talk to people now is listen to those words they're using. Oh, I can't, or I wish, or, that doesn't cut it. Right? Have a plan, right? So that's really the first part, is kind of take an inventory of everything they say. So again, that's kind of, like I mentioned earlier, Megs is really working on the mindset and the help for herself. She's working on the NLP piece, really trying to get people to a breakthrough faster, right? Kind of like how Todd has that gift of being able to get you there in almost a moment, right? A couple little exercise, couple experiment, experiences, and next thing you know, you're like, wow, you have that shift, and you can feel it, not just logically know it, but you feel it, and then you can start to live it. So that's kind of, for us, it's really about, man, we have so many friends and couples that, it's a shame, because they're pretty good, right? But like, man, wish they could be better. And I'm just like, man, you have to work though. Like Meg and I put a lot of work in. We spend a lot of time and money going to seminars, reading books, all those things we talked about. I mean, that's not free, you know. But a lot of people, you know, when you get down to it, a lot of people will say they want certain things, as you know, but are they willing to put in the work? And for the couples that are, I think it's a struggle initially, right? Because you may not see immediate results as fast as you want, right? So you're like, oh, how long is this going to take? I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter. It's about the journey, right? Back to it's about the journey. So it's like, so if it takes you 4 years, but you over those 4 years learn and love and live with your spouse, and you know, you guys just have, you know, you're going through it together. Who else would you want to go through? You're supposed to be together anyway for life. So hey, let's learn. But yeah, that's kind of what we see, is just really helping people to understand too, when one person in that couple is trying to grow. You know, again, there's that resentment sometimes. It's a shame. Like you should be on the same team trying to move forward together, even though it may not be your time, you know, because you may love your job or love what's going on, but you need to support that person. But again, understanding what support means to that person, right? So that's kind of where we go deeper and deeper. But you know, that's where we
absolutely.
kind of.
So just for everybody in the audience too, is all this stuff. I'm going to throw, you know, of course, I talked to you all about, you know, Steve's super smart when it comes to crypto. I'll throw that up there. But, you know, we're going to put all your links in there. I want links to your store. And then, yeah, if there's anything you want, but, you know, certainly, I think, you know, I would come to you personally if I had advice for crypto. If I wanted to talk about eating better, I would come to you on that. If I was thinking about shifting from a certain type of workout to a different type of workout, or splitting my workouts, I would come to you, you know, and I'm just trying to throw some of this out there. So for people that are thinking or on the bubble, I mean, Steve's got a lot of experience. Megan's got a lot of experience. They're getting smarter. They're getting better. They're improving every day. They can help a lot of people in a lot of ways. And the thing I love about our group and this group that we're in and a part of, everybody is trying to do good for other people.
Yeah.
While they're trying to become the most badass versions of themselves, and I friggin' love it. So, hey man, do you have anything else you want to put the cherry on the top of this at the end? You got anything else you want to add, man? I've loved this.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's been awesome. I mean, I love spending time with, you know, you especially. I know, like when we first got to meet, I was like, again, it's that long lost brother for me, right? It's kind of like never met you before over except some Zooms, and it's like we were able to pick right up and kind of. Yeah. And I think that's a testament to folks that are on that same wavelength, because, you know, I meet you, you meet me, we meet all these other folks, but we're already thinking about service to others. I didn't hear anybody like talk about themselves really, unless they were asked the question, right? Like, hey, Matt, tell me about, hey, Steve. It was all about, tell me about you. What are you? Everybody was so into, you know, everyone's mission and their story and how they can support it. So with that, I would say, you know, we didn't talk a lot about a support system in a lot of ways. I know I mentioned in the military, but that's been important to me to grow, is being able to step back and be like, Steve doesn't need to be a solopreneur and have all the answers himself, right? It's, I can have a team, you know, not just Meg, but it's guys like you and other folks in the group and Jeff, and, you know, I can reach out to people. I can ask those questions, and that's been extremely helpful for us, because, you know, on this journey, we're new to it. Sure, we've had a lot of successes in other areas, but this, we're growing just like everybody. So, I mean, it's consistency, daily action, and, you know, imperfect action. I think I heard, you know, maybe it was Todd or someone said, just, you got to keep doing it. You realize that, hey, you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We're all, and just learn from them and adjust. So, yeah, no, but again, I think that the most important thing that I've learned is it's the journey, right? It is the journey, and enjoy it. And just have fun. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I heard Todd, I think it was Todd or somebody, you know, there's so many smart things we hear, but no man is an island in and of himself, right? So it's you know, I used to have that attitude too, where I'm going to try to do it all by myself. I don't need anybody. I'm a tough guy. No, absolutely. Now, you know, and I love, like, you and I are closer now, and I feel even more confident to say, hey, Steve, what the fuck am I doing wrong, man? How can you help me out here, right? And you're going to give me a no bullshit, honest answer. And that's what I need. You know, and yeah, you can come to me with anything too, and I'm going to shoot you straight, you know. So I'll give you my opinion, you know, for sure. But no, it's been an honor and a privilege having you on, and thanks for coming on. And
Absolutely.
man, send me all your stuff, and we'll get it in the description. And man, been great. Tell Megan I said hello next time you see her.
Yeah, will do. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Pat.
All right, brother.
See ya.